Today we're going to talk about exponential models, exponential equations, exponential graphs. So we've already talked about this in the functions unit in first semester. So it shouldn't surprise anybody that these exponential graphs are just those curved L's, right? And then the equation has an x in the exponent. Here is the standard function, or the standard equation, a times b to the x. So for example, y equals 2 times 3 to the x. This is an example of this equation. The a that you see here is the initial value, so that would be 2 in this example. And the base, which is what has the x on it, okay? There are two types of functions. There's a growth and a decay. The growth goes up, as you can see here, it's going up, and here the decay is going down. So the growth factor is the b, and the growth factor tells you how fast or how slow it's going up or going down. An asymptote is the approach, on here it's 0. So this is y equals 0 is the asymptote here and here. As you can see, it's flattening out on this here, okay? All right. So identify the following graphs and equations as either exponential growth or decay. Also identify the y-intercept. Now the y-intercept is, as we remember, the initial value, or the a. So here we go. So this one here is growth because it's going up. And the y-intercept, change colors for a sec here. The y-intercept's right here. Okay, so that is y equals 2, or if you wanted to write it as 0, 2. All right. This one here is going down, so this is decay as it's going down. Sorry for the handwriting. And the y-intercept here looks like it's 1.5. So y equals 1.5, or again, 0, 1.5. So here, this is just an equation without the graph. So the equation, when you look here, here's your initial value, which gives you your intercept, and here's determining if it's growth or decay. Now, if it's growth, it'll be above 1. If it's decay, it's between 0 and 1. So this seems to be below 1. It is below 1, so this is decay. And the y-intercept is y equals 5, or again, 0, 5. Here, this D1, the 5 here is bigger than 1, so this is growth. And again, we're looking at this here is your y-intercept, so your y equals 3 here, or again, 0, 3. So that's how you do the stuff just from looking at it and just from seeing it, which will be in your book work. But here, we're going to graph this. So as stated in the directions, and I'll write it here, we're going to use Calculator 84 for the iPad. That's what I'm on now, or the iPhone. Or that Wabbit, EMU, I think this is how you spell it, for Android. So this is for Apple. And then this is for Android. So your basic, okay. So anyway, moving on. It says we're going to graph this, and we're going to make sure we have 3 points to include in the y-intercept and the asymptote. All right, so when we graph this, we are going to type in our calculator y equals 5 parenthesis 1 divided by 3 to the x. So let me get my calculator open. Again, I'm going to open up the Calculator 84, which is here. I'm going to press y equals, and then 5 parenthesis 1 divided by 3, parenthesis, and then raise it to the x. All right? And now I'm going to press graph just to show you what the graph should look like. We should already know it's decay because of the 1/3. So let me go back for a second and show you. The 1/3 here is the decay. So that's decay. Right? And we should see it better cross through 0, 5 for the y-intercept. Let's go back and check that graph. All right, so we can go to the table. We all know its second graph is here, our table. All right? And there's 0, 5 right off the bat, 0, 5. Okay? And then we have these things that are pretty big. Obviously, we can't graph too many of these, but we got -1, 15, 0, 5. So let's write down our table. Oops, excuse me. So I'm going to erase this calculator stuff now since you already have it down. Okay. All right. Sorry, guys. All right. So here we go. So we said that it's decay, right? And then we should cross through 0, 5. So we have this table, as you can see in your calculator, that -1, 15, 0, 5, and then these decimal ones. And then I think it's 0.36. All right. So when we have this table, we got this graph here, right? And we know that it's going to cross through 0, 5. All right. So we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this is decay, so it's dropping down. So we have this one at -1, way up here at positive 15. And this thing drops down, and we'll get closer and closer to 0. Here's your asymptote. And how do I know it's getting closer and closer to 0? Again, we go to our calculator, and if we keep going down here, this will get closer and closer to 0, as you can see. I really can't show you with a pen here, but it gets closer and closer to 0. Okay? Also, if you're kind of curious on how I know this so quickly, there's no plus or minus afterwards, which would give us the asymptote at that. All right. Moving on. So it says in this form is altered to y equals a b to the x, then graph changes. So here's a and here's b. And I already said something about a plus or minus being that asymptote. So if I go and grab my pen, all right, which one would be a and b? Well, do you see this negative here, right here, this negative right there? That's a flip. We've talked about this before. What is the negative a or the negative positive a? Flips upside down. So that's this guy here. This is the a one. And now, changing colors real quick. This +3 is going to be the asymptote at 3 right here. So this thing raised up, this whole graph raised up by +3. That's this guy. Plus we see its decay, so this guy is b. All right? Okay. All right, one more slide, and we're almost done for today. So what we have here is the domain and range. And if you don't remember this, domain goes from left to right. Left to right. Range is from bottom to top. So the domain in every single one of these, the domain in every one is -infinity to infinity on every one of these. So that's going to happen every single time. The range is the difference. The range is different. The range starts from bottom, and that's the asymptote we've been talking about all day. It's 0 to infinity. This here has the range of, again, 0 to infinity. But this one's a little different. This comes from the bottom there at -infinity. Hold on. Let me erase this because I got messed up here. Oh. Sorry. So the range is -infinity to 0 because it's coming from the bottom. All right, so you have some bookwork to do. I've attached it in the My Teams. So work on that bookwork, sketch your graphs, and answer correctly. Submit, and we'll see you next time.